Welcome to the last podcast of the year. Today I'm going to be talking about everything I learned in 2024. Some of the key topics I'm going to talk about is balance and discipline in your 20s. I want to talk about setting boundaries within the workplace, personal life. I want to talk about ego, vulnerability, independency. There's so much I learned this year and different to other years, so I'm going to just get straight into it. 2024 was a very different year for me. I feel like the main takeaway from 2024 was balance, being in your 20s and trying to create a great career, trying to better yourself mentally, but also trying to have a bit of fun and not letting that slip away from you has been a very hard journey to try and master the middle ground of all of that. I've always been someone that's been very restrictive on myself, set a lot of rules, set a lot of boundaries, never really let myself have too much fun out of fear of loss of control, I believe. And I think that actually held me back from so many things in my young teenage years, and I think there's pros and cons with that. But I think this year I was the year where I was you are allowed to have fun. Go and have fun. And I found it really difficult, and I felt guilt and worrying about other aspects of my life that weren't getting as much attention. And it's just, you don't know what to prioritise in this sort of era. And that's kind of the main thing I've been struggling with this year. Or not struggling with, just learning about. And I'll get into that in more detail. But if we start from the very beginning, January time, I feel January was hard because I was still in this sort of overly optimistic mindset that had continued from 2023. Now 2023, at the beginning of it, some actual quite traumatic and bad things had happened in the beginning. And I think out of protection, my brain went into a defense mode of just being overly happy, overly optimistic, overly hyper manic, go mode. And I was exhausted by the end of it, but I was going to the gym, doing crazy well-being stuff, going out all the time, just traveling as much as I could. I was just the world is great, the world is great. Even though these horrible things had happened, I think I didn't want to admit that the world actually was a little bit flawed in that respect, because if I admitted that, then I feel I would have fell into a bit of a depression cycle and started becoming a victim and being poor me and this is shit and da 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 da. I refuse to go there, because I think when I've been younger, I have been in that point. So even though these things that had happened were horrible, I didn't want to use it as a poor me, the world's shit, blah 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 mode. I wanted to just get out of that completely, but maybe too far the other way, where I was just completely in a euphoric episode of just the world is amazing, go go go. And that kind of continued into 2024, which has got pros and cons. I'm so grateful for that, because I think it protected me and let me see light in the world in a dark time, and I'm very grateful for that. But what was hard is it continued over into 2024, which was great until I lost my puppy, Cody. And I think that just shook me and woke me up from this episode of being actually no, the world is a little bit unfair sometimes. And I think that hurt the most because he was a baby, he was very innocent. It was I had a lot of questions and I had a lot of anger as to why something like that could have happened. And I think it really did make me an angry person for a long time, which was so hard, and I felt massive guilt with, because I'd worked so hard to not let bad things alter or change me. I'm quite a bubbly person and I wanted to keep it that way, and I can tell that before Cody passing and after, I had lost my spark completely. That is the one thing that really just maybe brought me back to reality. But it was hard because I was kind of living in this fantasy world where the world was amazing and I was doing all this crazy fun stuff and really looking after myself, and I felt like I was on top of the world. And then to have that all come crashing down to not a low, but to reality, the sort of middle ground, but it feels like a low. And I think I've been chasing that sort of high feeling that I had last year ever since. Yeah. Losing Cody definitely, I think, did bring me back to reality a bit of like, look, I'm still going to remain as optimistic and positive as I can, but the world isn't all just sunshine and rainbows, is it? Like, there is some hurt to it. So I think with summer starting to like ramp up this year, I had also restarted therapy because I just wanted to talk about the dogs. I wanted to talk about a lot of things that I hadn't actually vocalized enough, to be honest. I had definitely bottled a lot of things, which is unlike me, but I just wanted to vent it out to someone. So I started therapy again, and we started looking at some real key themes, and a lot of it I'd already uncovered with previous therapists, but there was something new I uncovered which I thought was super interesting, and it's all about rules and restrictions. And we basically uncovered that I like being in control. I don't like when things aren't in my control. It makes me spiral. It makes me feel very on edge and anxious. And I think a way to keep me in control is I, since a child, have always put these like rules and restrictions on myself to always be behaved, to, you know, never disappoint, never get in trouble. And I think I would bend those rules a little bit at school, but mainly for attention. And then like back home, I feel like I had to be very well behaved. And I think having a younger brother come into the picture as well, where he bends the rules, I think maybe the normal amount, but more than I would ever do, shows that I definitely was almost like a goody two-shoes, too scared to break any rules, too scared to take any risks. And it was almost like I was parenting myself. I was being like a strict mother for myself. And it's only until this year, really, where I've been surrounded with the correct friends, where they've offered me just the right amount of like freedom and fun, where you're not abusing it and you're not taking it too far and neglecting the rest of your life, but you are allowed to have fun, you're allowed to let loose a little bit. And these friends have really helped me to feel safe to do so. I feel like whenever I've ever wanted to like have a bit of fun, I've not felt very safe. Maybe haven't been around the right people, or I've had this internal rules and restrictions in my head. And it's very interesting, but to finally have this people where I feel like I can sort of just have fun, let loose, and be in my 20s has been so important to me and made me feel so good, where I can try new things and I can have fun and I don't feel embarrassed or have to like care about what I look like or did we get enough photos or any of that. Like this year I've definitely, because I've been editing my end of year video, I've hardly got any footage of my best memories this year, and this is how I know I've been having good times. And maybe it's because I've some of my friends are older, they're not as like chronically online as maybe like my age and younger, but like genuinely that's made me feel so good. Like I'm truly living in the moment and I'm not having to worry about, am I going, like I always just feel like I'm in trouble and I don't know why. So to have friends to let me know that I'm not and I can have fun and relax has been good. Letting my sort of guard down and just letting, and like you do end up having more fun, more funny stories, more experiences, even if it does go wrong. Like if you're always living in a bubble and sheltering yourself, you are never going to learn. So I think that's really helped. I think with that though, like that's like a clear thing in your 20s is like wanting to try new things and have some fun and go out, and you've got the money to go out now and stuff and etc. But it's so easy to maybe go too far the other way and abuse it, and that's always been in the back of my head of like, if you want to go out, you want to enjoy yourself, or it's not even like going out drinking, partying, it's like if you want to go out and spend money on holidays and like shopping and all these things that might seem unnecessary, that's so okay if you've got the rest of your life sorted and in plan. So for me, it's like I must stay on top of my work and my maze media. Like that is important to me. I can't let that slip. And if I can, I want to keep my mental and physical well-being in check, go for walks every day, go to the gym as much as possible, continue therapy or do things that are mentally stimulating. Spend time with the right friends, with family. Like as long as I like feel like I'm giving attention to every bit of my life, then I feel like I can also give attention to the fun side. But it's about having this balance. I've spoke about this before of like, if you have mastered discipline, you have mastered life, because you can have anything. And I think there is way too much societal pressure on picking a side, a party, crazy, wild side, or overly positive, well-being, gym freak and it's too hard to pick one extreme or the other. It would be great to have a middle ground or a jigsaw puzzle of taking elements from each side and crafting your own personal puzzle, because you cannot compare to anyone else, because we've all been brought up differently. Each single soul has had something different, even twins. So not everyone's puzzle is ever going to look the same. So I refuse to compare, but I may take pieces from elements that are inspiring or fun or that I want for my own life and add it to my puzzle. And this year has been all about that, is picking the puzzles, what works, what doesn't. And sometimes that can take a minute, like, to put the puzzle in place and realise it's not fitting, and then to actually admit to yourself that it's not fitting can take some time. It's like friends, relationships, a work, a job, or like a lifestyle that you're trying to live for others, and you realise it just isn't fitting, and you have to admit it to yourself and throw that piece away and try again. And that's what I think the 20s are going to be for me, is this putting puzzles in and seeing what fits and what doesn't. And what's so important to remember is some pieces of the puzzle will fit for certain times. Chapters, this is what I call it. Well, a person, for example, is supposed to be in your life, a friend, whoever, for 3 months. And then they've served their purpose, and then you fall out or you distance or something, and then you don't need it anymore. Getting comfy with allowing that to happen and being okay with that nothing is permanent. Just being okay with trying puzzles out where they fit and when they fit, and when they're not, being okay with being like, okay, it doesn't work anymore, and trying again. And I feel like it's going to be a constant puzzle making experience for the next at least 7 years of my life, because that's what the 20s are for, is figuring out yourself. So that's where I've started to feel this year. I've started to feel that process really ramping up. And yeah, if I want to go out to a festival and I want to go on these lovely holidays and have fun in summer, great, but I have to make sure that I'm putting energy into work, or simple things like having a pamper night on a Sunday, looking after yourself, going to the gym, or cooking yourself a nice meal 3 times a week. Whatever your little goals are, you need to have those in place to say you've got discipline for yourself. And if you can do those and then reward yourself with a treat, with going out, whatever, then you've mastered the discipline process. And if you can keep that on board, I feel like you should be able to experience everything. If you can juggle it pretty well and consistently, I don't see why there's any point in saying you're not allowed to do something, or it's not part, like, that's not for you. Like, if you're really business minded and you're like an entrepreneur, I see so many podcasts where it's like, I will never go out. And I understand that if you really don't have the time, you've got to put your full focus and energy into a business, say. But I think if you're denying yourself the experience, then you've never actually lived it. Then you haven't unlocked a part of your brain that maybe a lesson would have been learnt there, or you would have found out something about yourself, or had fun, or met people, or networked, or whatever it is. And I'm not saying like clubbing or anything, but it could be simple things like someone invites you out to a meal and you're like, no. So I feel like you should never deny yourself the experience. You shouldn't deny on the other side either, of like going out all the time and someone offers you maybe some incentive to start working, and you go, no. You can't do that either. You are denying yourself experiences and lessons and success or fun, and that's not the point. You can't just pick one area and stick to it. The whole point is to be very open-minded and to let experiences and opportunities come, whether that be career, fun, social. Let everything flow so you are someone that has all these experiences. I don't know about you, but I want to be someone that when I sit with my grandkids one day, I have a million different stories to tell. Some fun festival stories, some all about the business world, some all about my travels, the different friends I've met. I want to have all this different knowledge and experience to share with others. And if I just picked one route or one end of the spectrum, I may have never had those stories. So I've been trying to do that this year. Balance, have fun, but also try and keep myself in check with my rules, my discipline. And everything with rules and restrictions is with like friends, dating, just anything that can give me sort of external validation. I've always been very wary of it because I know how quick I can jump onto it and crave it, and it's a bit of an addiction. And I definitely experienced limerence in my first early relationship, and I think that terrified me, that I could let sort of like this fake fantasy come over me and try and morph myself or force this jigsaw puzzle into my life that was never going to fit. And for the sake of just wanting to be loved and to get some sort of validation out. And I've done it the same with friendship groups, where I would force friendship groups to try and fit in my life, or I would change myself to be accepted, all for this need to be liked and wanted. And I think this year it's definitely, or even the end of last year, it's definitely something that I got better at, of being authentically myself and not needing to be liked and wanted. But I know that because of like my anxious attachment or my insecurities, or even the way I've been brought up, I can easily get sort of fixated on people and groups and places where I feel like I need to be accepted and involved. And I know how addictive that can be. And I'm someone that's very much based on little hits of dopamine. So it would be so easy for me to just jump onto things that give me validation. And I've been very strict on myself, especially the beginning of this year, of like kind of not allowing my ego to take over me and to just run into something again where I just get completely emotionally consumed, and all just for hits of dopamine, and I don't actually know what I truly want then. And that was something I needed to learn at the beginning of this year, is separating like, what do I actually want, what are my boundaries, and what's ego and what's insecurity. And that was quite hard to differentiate. But then I got too invested and too hyperfixated on all of that and putting rules and restrictions in place that I wasn't even like allowing anyone in. I put my guard all the way up because I was so scared of like rocking that boat again, and nothing changed. So luckily throughout this year I feel like I've under the same category of just sort of being 20, trying new things, trying to have fun. I've done that as well in this like validation and ego topic as well, of just like, as long as I have the discipline and the boundaries and I'm honest with myself, and I try and be as honest as possible about exactly where I'm at, then I feel like you can sort of indulge in it a little bit. And the only time you can do that is if you have a strong sense of self. If I know I'm good enough and it doesn't matter if someone gives me attention or not, then I'm okay. My boat isn't going to be rocked. But if you're someone that's in a bit of a low, a bit insecure, and validation is what is driving you and keeping you alive, then you're going to have to leave it alone until you find the sense of self. And I feel like I finally got that back a bit this year, meaning I could let more people in again, and it wasn't going to affect me if people left me again, or you know, if there was some chaos or controversy. I was going to be okay independently no matter what, so I could have more fun and friendships and meet new people and have new opportunities, because I knew, as scary and as uncomfortable as it can be, it's not going to affect me. At the end of the day, I'm always going to be alright. So I think as long as you have that strong sense of self, and then to have strong boundaries for yourself and for others is so important. And I think as long as you have that, you can really indulge and have some fun and break the rules a bit and push your boundaries a little bit and be like, how far can I go, until it's like, oh shit, shouldn't have done that, or oh, that wasn't fun. That's the whole point of your 20s, is it's never going to be, you can't be perfect forever. And I think a strong thing I always see is like the hurt becomes the hurter, and I think I've always been really scared of that, and trying to always be as nice as possible and sort of people please everyone. But sometimes you have to have your own boundaries and be like, look, this is my rules. And then also like, what do you want? Sometimes to be a bit selfish and be like, no, fuck it, I want to have some fun, and go for it. So I think trying to balance that is difficult when you're trying to sort of better yourself. You're trying to process sort of your traumas and what you're through, and knowing how you are, but also trying to learn more, because you're never going to learn if you're like, no, I'm not doing that again, put the walls up, never let anyone in again. You're not going to learn. So it's kind of like letting that guard down, but only if you've got the strong sense of self where the ego's not going to phase you, and the discipline and the boundaries to know what you're doing. And I think all of that comes under this whole category of like, I'm a very restrictive person, but I've tried this year to let my rules down a bit and have a bit more fun. But I'm also someone where I need the boundaries and the rules to keep me in check, and to not sort of lose the plot and get too consumed in any aspect of my life. So finding that balance has been so key for me, and is something I'll continue in 2025. But I definitely appreciate the fun I've had this year, and to like push the boundaries. It's been interesting, but I think it's still a scary place to sort of be vulnerable and free, and to not have some structure. So it's definitely something I'm working on. But everything will be, and I really do think that analogy of the puzzle and letting pieces come in and out and having fun with picking and choosing and experiencing different things is the point of your 20s, and I hope that that's something I still feel comfortable with next year, and I hope I don't get scared again. And a massive thing that I learned in this year was linked to my Maisie Media, which is my digital marketing agency as such, where I offer content creation services, photography, videography, editing, like a combination of stuff, and I've been running it for years now, since COVID, and I feel each year I've learned more experience, I've dealt with more clients, and I've had my good and my bad, and I think this year is where I really progressed in my content skills. It got a lot better, and I took on, like, thankfully, so many clients this year, and I'm very, very grateful for that. But I do feel that I had some clients that really shaped sort of my new approach now. I feel, if I'm being honest, I dealt with a lot of clients, and I have throughout the years, not just this year, where because of my age, I do feel like they question my professionalism. And that's quite hard, because as a creative, and I feel like a lot of other creatives will understand this, I feel like I suffer a lot from imposter syndrome, where I do know my content is good, but on a majority I always question, is it good enough? Like, I'm not happy with that. I'm very picky, and I can put myself down quite a lot. So to have customers sort of belittle you on top of that can be very damaging and almost make you want to quit and give up. And I had a few that made me really question myself, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't in the wrong here, and I had everything screwed up tight to make sure that I knew what I was doing. So I created new contracts, I revamped my website, I really condensed my services down, because I felt like I was offering, say, 6 different services, and people would reach out to me and ask me for things that were related to my business, but not a specific service. And back when I was younger and looking for experience and to build my portfolio, I would say yes to any little bit of work that people needed, whether that be on my website or not, because it was just about getting the experience. And then this year I felt like I didn't really need that anymore, and there was a few people that would reach out, and I felt like they would take it a bit far, try and squeeze as much out of me as possible, or I'd go to meetings and make things very clear, and then it would be changed later on, and I would have to learn to set boundaries and back myself and sit down and say, no, this is not what we discussed, this is not a service I offer, this is how much it will be if you'd like this, and I needed to become a businesswoman basically this year, of just really stop just being like, yeah, I'll do that for you, I'll do that, it's okay, but growing a backbone and being like, no. And to do that, I needed to make sure I knew what my processes were. So I created the new website, contracts, like step-by-step processes. I know exactly what I'm going to offer a client, and I've got 6 services, and you can have one of those, and that is all. I would rather be picky with my clients and create a good relationship with them now than just take on, like, I'd rather quality over quantity now, and that's why I did the revamp. And I learned a lot this year about setting boundaries, and it's okay to say no, like, it's my business, and just because you're older doesn't necessarily mean you know what's best, and what I'm about to say. Like, I know my stuff, I've studied it, I've experienced it, and yeah, I feel like age is a very interesting conversation, and I wonder if people get this across different industries, but especially in the creative and marketing world, I feel like people don't really get it and make you feel a bit shit about it, to be honest, and I wasn't having that. So set some clear boundaries, and I've revamped, and I feel so much better about my business now, and I have so many more clear goals, and I've got more equipment now, and I feel like I want to back my business. I know I'm good, and to get to that place has been hard, and maybe I needed a few shit clients to bully me and be a bit difficult for me to say, I'm sick of this now. I know what I can offer, I know I'm a good businesswoman, I know I'm professional, and take it or leave it type thing. So I'm happy with that now. I think another thing under Maisie Media is like the creative the creativeness of this year, I have definitely realised that without any creative spark, I feel burnt out. And I think the last 3-4 months I have been very in a burnt out cycle. Maybe why I've not been doing as many podcasts or as much, because even though I work from home and I don't actually do as much as, say, you guys, I feel mentally burnt out sometimes when I'm not socialising enough, when I've not got enough creative juice going, and no new goals or new things to look forward to. I find it very depressing, and I think I've definitely felt sort of mentally burnt out because I make a to-do list every day on a Saturday, but it's stupid tasks that don't really need doing. It's to sort of distract me from the bigger picture and the bigger goals I have in mind. And I think the biggest thing I learned with this is, like, we are the authors of our own story. I can sit here and stay in this slump and every day wake up and be, oh, it's the same thing over and over again. But it's up to me to take control. It's up to me to make the changes, to make me feel stimulated. So the simple things like, you know, if you're not feeling stimulated with your friends, you need to change your friends. If you're not feeling engaged or positive and enlightened, you have to make the decision to make a difference with that. The same with the job. If you're in a job where you do not feel stimulated and you're not happy with the return, you've got to make the change in whatever way that could be. So important to take risks. And that's another thing in our 20s, is it's all about taking risks. Do it. And it's the same with travelling. Like, I have just booked a solo trip and I'm so happy I've done it, because I would have never done it if I didn't just go for it and say, look, something in my life has to change. I'm craving something big. I've always wanted to travel and I've saved enough money, and something needs to... I need a big change to keep my brain stimulated, open-minded, to meet new people, to do new opportunities, new things. I feel like this will then spiral me out with ideas of where I want to go next and what I want to do next, to be constantly stimulated. And I definitely know I need a structure and a routine. That's why I've got my to-do list every day. But I need that creativeness. And luckily this year I've had some really cool projects of Maisie Media that has kick-started and made me go, actually, yeah, that's what I want to do and I'm good at it. And that really helped me to sort of stay afloat this year with you know, it's a hobby as well at the end of the day. It gives me something to do, a purpose, something to look forward to. It's been a very great year. It's been fun. It's been really good. I've been very grateful. I've had some amazing opportunities and fun times. And yeah, I think the main things have just been enjoying the peace, accepting, you know, when it's quiet, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think understanding when you're burnt out and you're not creatively or mentally stimulated, and trying to, you as your own author, make a change with that. And learning balance and discipline, being in your 20s or even younger, letting things come in and out, have a bit of fun, but make sure you're holding yourself accountable and not neglecting yourself, and you've got some rules in place for yourself. And yeah, I think that's kind of everything of 2024. So if you related to any of that, please do let me know. And I wish everyone a good 2025.